Receiving the message, "I am still alive, trust no one," at a funeral would immediately trigger intense shock and disbelief. Funerals are traditionally solemn occasions meant for mourning, reflection, and closure, where attendees expect to honor the deceased and support one another through grief. The sudden arrival of such a message completely shatters that expectation, especially for someone who's just lost a spouse, as the mind is already in a state of heightened emotional vulnerability. Grief clouds judgment, and the abrupt introduction of contradictory information can cause cognitive dissonance, where two conflicting realities cannot coexist. On one hand, the belief that the spouse is gone; on the other, the suggestion that this may not be true. The initial reaction is likely disbelief, instinctively perceived as a mistake, cruel prank, or misunderstanding. In a funeral setting where emotions are raw and the brain is preoccupied with mourning, the mind may struggle to fully process the message, cycling between denial and confusion. Shock in this context is also deeply physical, triggering a surge of adrenaline, increased heart rate, and a sense of disorientation. The somber surroundings, music, attire, weeping attendees, clash with the surreal content of the message, making the environment feel alien and unreal. Beyond disbelief, a creeping sense of uncertainty arises. Questions flood the mind about whether the death was a mistake, faked, or if anyone at the funeral can be trusted. This destabilizes perception, leaving one in profound confusion. The message also forces an immediate questioning of reality. Normally, the death of a loved one relies on trust in authorities, family, or medical professionals, with a death certificate, casket, and mourning rituals reinforcing the finality of the event. The contradictory message, however, creates disorienting cognitive conflict, compelling the recipient to reevaluate every detail of recent experiences for signs of deception. How could a funeral be arranged for someone still alive? Were there inconsistencies in behavior leading up to the death? Could authorities have been involved in a deliberate deception? Even the reactions of others at the funeral may now seem staged or artificial. This crisis extends to self-perception, prompting questions about one's own judgment and whether perceptions have been manipulated. Emotions oscillate between fear, hope, and confusion, leaving the line between reality and fabrication blurred. The experience is destabilizing, forcing a reevaluation of the world, relationships, and personal experiences. Compounding the cognitive turmoil are profound trust issues. The warning to trust no one undermines the foundational belief that people act in good faith, causing every gesture, word, or action to be scrutinized. Familiar faces, comforting interactions, and solemn ceremonies all come under suspicion, creating emotional isolation. Doubt spreads rapidly, infecting thoughts and interactions, as even minor inconsistencies are interpreted as evidence of betrayal. Authorities, medical professionals, and friends may all appear complicit, intensifying paranoia and making social connection difficult. Trust, once a source of comfort, becomes a source of tension and danger, further destabilizing the individual. Fear and paranoia naturally follow. Fear arises from the primal concern for personal safety, while paranoia amplifies the sense that everyone and everything may be untrustworthy. The funeral, a space for vulnerability, suddenly feels threatening, and even close family members or lifelong friends are viewed with suspicion. Emotional reactions intensify. Adrenaline surges, thoughts race, and hypervigilance dominates perception. Fear and paranoia feed on uncertainty, creating a psychological loop where rational reasoning struggles against instinctive caution. Ordinary interactions transform into potential threats, and the individual becomes trapped in a state of constant alertness and anxiety. The message simultaneously creates an urgent need to investigate. Driven by disbelief, fear, and hope, the mind analyzes every detail of recent events, conversations, and actions for clues. Questions dominate thought. Was the spouse really dead? Who sent the message? What dangers exist? The urgency is both emotional and physical, sharpening awareness, heightening sensory perception, and propelling action. Even ordinary grief rituals are overshadowed by the necessity to verify reality. With the instruction to trust no one, every lead must be scrutinized, interactions reconsidered, and decisions accelerated. The funeral transforms into a backdrop for a desperate search for truth, where every thought and action is directed toward uncovering reality before it is too late. The message also introduces the potential for danger. The presumed death being false suggests hidden threats, conspiracies, or malicious motives. The funeral, typically a safe and reflective space, becomes one of hypervigilance, where physical and psychological risks intertwine. The uncertainty surrounding motives, trust, and the truth compounds anxiety, turning every interaction, observation, and action into a potential hazard. The perceived danger is both external, from others, and internal, from the mental strain of navigating a world where nothing can be taken at face value. This situation generates intense emotional conflict, a turbulent mix of grief, hope, anger, confusion, and betrayal. Grief is interrupted by hope and disbelief, creating inner turmoil. The tension between mourning and the desire to reunite with the spouse collides with suspicion and anger at potential deceit. Conflicting emotions complicate decision-making, heighten strain, and leave the individual struggling to process a world that now feels unreliable. Every thought and feeling is scrutinized, and the moment of mourning becomes an emotional battlefield. Adding to the tension is the mysterious context of the message. Funerals are normally structured, predictable events, but the sudden emergence of this cryptic communication disrupts that structure, raising questions about the authenticity of the ceremony, the sender's motives, and hidden agendas. The timing amplifies emotional vulnerability, and the ambiguity of the source creates multiple interpretations, fueling suspicion, hypervigilance, and anxiety. Ordinary details acquire new significance as the mind searches for clues in a landscape thick with uncertainty and intrigue. The implication of deception heightens the psychological strain. The message suggests manipulation, faked events, or concealed truths, forcing a re-examination of every action, statement, and emotional response. Suspicion spreads to friends, family, and authorities, creating feelings of betrayal, vulnerability, and isolation. The individual becomes hyper-aware of potential manipulation, and ordinary life transforms into a careful navigation of caution and scrutiny. Trust is no longer stable, and the perception of reality itself is under siege. Ultimately, the message serves as a catalyst for a story or investigation. It transforms a personal tragedy into a suspenseful journey, igniting curiosity and compelling active problem-solving. The individual is thrust into the role of investigator, analyzing inconsistencies, scrutinizing relationships, and seeking evidence to confirm or refute the startling claim. Emotional vulnerability, danger, and deception drive the narrative, creating a high-stakes quest for truth. Grief, anger, betrayal, fear, and hope intertwine, compelling action while destabilizing the emotional landscape. In this way, the cryptic message converts a private moment of mourning into the beginning of a suspenseful, psychologically complex story filled with mystery, danger, and human emotion. If that message at the funeral made you pause for even a second and wonder, what if nothing here is what it seems? Now ask yourself, if you were in their place, who would you trust? Let me know in the comments, what would your next move be? If you enjoy psychological thrillers where grief turns into suspicion and every truth feels dangerous, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because the next part may change everything. Remember, when the truth is hidden, trust can be the most dangerous mistake of all. See you in the next episode.